The preparation chamber was small and cold. Katie sat on a metal bench, checking her equipment one final time. Her scanner was clipped to her belt, fully charged and running diagnostics. Greg and Linda stood near the door, their faces tight with worry. "You don't have to do this," Dan said quietly. He had been pacing for the last 20 minutes. "We can refuse. Find another way to negotiate." "There is no other way," Katie replied. She stretched her shoulders, feeling the familiar burn of muscles preparing for action. Zrek made that clear. "Either we prove humans are strong, or we become targets. Those are the only choices." "But 3 Calvex warriors? Katie, you saw how fast Vex moved. You got lucky once." Katie looked up at him. "It wasn't luck, sir. It was training. Earth trained me for this, even if neither of us knew it at the time." Before Dan could argue further, the door slid open. A Calvex warrior with blue markings on his face entered. "The arena is ready. Come now." They followed him through more dark corridors. Katie noticed more Calvex joining them, walking parallel in other hallways. Word had spread fast. This was going to be a spectacle. The arena was a massive circular room with high ceilings. The floor was covered in sand that crunched under Katie's boots. Bright lights hung overhead, washing out the shadows. Seats rose up on all sides, and they were filling quickly with Calvex warriors. All eager to watch the human failed dot, in the center of the arena stood a raised platform. Zrek waited there, along with 3 Calvex warriors Katie had not seen before. They were bigger than Vex, their scales darker and marked with scars that told stories of past battles. "Lieutenant Morgan," Zrek called out. His voice echoed in the large space. "These are your opponents. Krell, Thax, and Dren. Each has won over 100 combat trials. Each has killed warriors from a dozen different species." Katie stepped onto the platform. Her scanner immediately began working, analyzing the 3 warriors. Data scrolled across the small screen. Threat level high. Multiple combat optimized targets. Recommended action. Request backup dot. She ignored the recommendation. "The rules are simple," Shrek continued. "You will face each warrior in single combat. No weapons. No killing blows. Fight until one opponent cannot continue. If you win all 3 trials, humanity earns our respect and alliance. If you lose even one, your species is marked as prey." "I understand," Katie said. Zrek gestured to the seats. Katie noticed something that made her stomach tighten. The arena was not just filled with Calvex anymore. Other species had arrived. She recognized a few from the diplomatic briefings. Thin, gray-skinned Novans. Bulky, rock-like Granics. Even a few insectoid Zith, their compound eyes reflecting the arena lights. This was not just a test anymore. This was a message being sent across the galaxy. Humanity was on trial, and everyone wanted to watch. "First trial," Drek announced. "Katie Morgan versus Krell." The largest of the 3 warriors stepped forward. He was at least 7.5 feet tall, his scales so dark they looked almost black. His arms were thick with muscle, and his claws scraped against the platform floor as he moved. Katie's scanner beeped. Krell's combat profile appeared on the display. Preferred tactic, overwhelming force. Speed rating, high. Strength rating, extreme. Weakness, relies on intimidation. Krell stared down at Katie. "I will make this quick, human. I do not enjoy breaking fragile things, but orders are orders." Katie said nothing. She had learned long ago that talking before a fight was just wasted energy. Instead, she watched Krell's stance, his weight distribution, the slight tension in his shoulders that meant he was about to attack. Drek raised his hand. "Begin." Krell moved like a landslide, fast and brutal. His clawed hand came down in an arc that would have crushed Katie's skull if it connected. But Katie was already moving. She sidestepped left, Letting the blow pass so close she felt the wind of it against her cheek. Krell spun, faster than something his size should be able to move. His other hand lashed out. Katie ducked under it and drove her elbow into his ribs. It was like hitting stone. Krell did not even flinch. He backhanded her. Katie saw it coming and rolled with the impact, turning what should have been a devastating blow into a glancing hit. It still sent her stumbling 3 steps backward. Pain flared in her shoulder. The crowd roared. They thought they were seeing the beginning of the end. Katie shook her head, clearing the stars from her vision. Her scanner was beeping urgently now. Krell was coming again, relentless. She needed to change tactics. Human military history was filled with lessons about fighting stronger opponents. Never meet force with force. Never fight the battle your enemy wants. Change the rules. Krell charged. Katie waited until the last possible second, then dropped to the ground and swept his legs. It should not have worked. Krell was too heavy, too stable. But Katie had aimed for the exact moment when all his weight was on one foot. Physics did the rest. Krell crashed down hard. The platform shook. Before he could recover, Katie was on him, her arm locked around his thick neck in a chokehold she had learned from human grappling sports. Krell thrashed, his strength incredible. Katie held on, her muscles screaming in protest. She knew she could not maintain this for long, but she did not need long. She just needed Krell to understand that size was not everything. 10 seconds passed. 20. Krell's movements became weaker. Finally, he tapped the platform floor twice with his hand. The universal sign of surrender. Katie released him and stood up quickly, putting distance between them. Her arms trembled from the effort. Krell rolled to his feet, gasping. He looked at her with something between surprise and anger. The arena had gone completely silent. Zrek stood up. Winner, Katie Morgan. First trial complete. The crowd erupted, but not with cheers, with shocked conversations. Katie could hear them even through the noise. Impossible. How did she do that? What kind of species is this? Dan was grinning from his seat near the edge of the arena. Greg and Linda looked relieved, but also worried. 2 more trials remained. You have 15 minutes to rest, Drek said. Then the second trial begins. Katie walked to the edge of the platform, where Dan waited with water and medical supplies. Her shoulder was already bruising, and her ribs ached where Krell had landed a few glancing blows. That was incredible, Dan said, handing her a water bottle. Katie drank deeply, then checked her scanner. It was running analysis on Thax and Dren, the 2 remaining opponents. Krell was strong but predictable. The next ones will be harder. They saw what I did. They will adapt. Can you beat them? Katie looked across the arena at Thax and Dren. They were watching her, studying her movements, learning. Smart. Dangerous. I don't know, Katie admitted. But I'm going to try. That is what humans do. We try until we win or we cannot try anymore. Linda approached with a medical scanner. Your shoulder is bruised but not broken. Ribs are okay. You are cleared to continue. Katie nodded. She spent the rest of the break stretching and reviewing the scanner data. Thax was faster than Krell, but less strong. Dren was somewhere in between, but showed signs of advanced tactical training. Neither would make the same mistakes Krell had made. Time is up, Drek announced. Second trial begins now. Katie Morgan versus Thax. Thax stepped onto the platform. He was leaner than Krell, with silver scales that seemed to shimmer under the lights. He did not speak, did not posture. He just watched Katie with calculating yellow eyes. Katie's scanner updated. Threat level critical. This was going to be harder than the first fight. Zrek raised his hand. Begin. Thax exploded forward with speed that made Krell look slow. Katie barely had time to react. His first strike came in high, his second low, a combination designed to overwhelm defenses. Katie blocked the first and dodged the second, but just barely. The fight was on, and this time, Katie knew she was in real danger. Lieutenant Katie Morgan stood at attention near the airlock, her hand resting on her sidearm. The diplomatic vessel Horizon hummed quietly around her as it docked with the massive Calvex flagship. Through the reinforced windows, she could see the alien ship's dark hull stretching out like a mountain range in space. It was easily 10 times the size of any human vessel she had ever seen. "Remember, everyone stays calm," Ambassador Dan Fletcher said as he adjusted his formal jacket. He was a thin man with gray hair and nervous hands. "The Calvex have agreed to meet with us. That alone is a victory. Do not give them any reason to reconsider." Katie nodded but said nothing. Her scanner, a small device clipped to her belt, beeped softly as it performed routine threat assessments. The display showed green. No immediate danger. She had checked it 3 times in the last 10 minutes anyway. The airlock cycled open with a hiss. Cold air rushed into the chamber, carrying strange scents Katie could not identify. The Calvex stood waiting on the other side. They were tall, easily 7 feet, with lean bodies covered in dark scales that seemed to absorb light. Their eyes were large and yellow, with vertical pupils that tracked every movement. The lead Calvex stepped forward. His scales were marked with golden patterns that Katie guessed indicated rank. "I am Commander Zrek," he said in perfect English, though his voice carried a strange double tone that made Katie's teeth ache. "You are the humans who requested this meeting." "I am Ambassador Fletcher," Dan said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "On behalf of Earth and her colonies, we thank you for your time." Zrek looked at the extended hand for a long moment, then ignored it. "Follow. We will speak in the command chamber." The Calvex turned and walked away without waiting for a response. Katie exchanged a quick glance with Dan, then fell into step behind him. 2 other human security officers, Greg Hayes and Linda Park, followed at the rear. Their boots echoed on the metal floor of the Calvex ship. The corridor was dark and cold. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls. Katie noticed scorch marks and dents everywhere she looked. This was a warship, built for battle and nothing else. Her scanner beeped again, still showing green, but she felt her muscles tense anyway. They entered a large chamber filled with holographic displays and weapon racks. At least 20 Calvex warriors stood around the room, all watching the humans with predatory interest. Katie recognized the look. She had seen it before on the faces of people who thought they were better than everyone else. "Sit," Zrek commanded, pointing to low chairs that looked uncomfortable and too small for the Calvex. Dan sat carefully. Katie remained standing behind him, as was proper for a security escort. "We have received your proposal for an alliance," Zrek continued. "The Calvex Empire controls 40 star systems and has never lost a battle in 700 years. What can humanity possibly offer us that we cannot take by force?" Dan cleared his throat. "We offer partnership, trade, shared knowledge. We believe that cooperation between our species could benefit both of us." "Cooperation," Zrek repeated the word as if tasting something bitter. "The galaxy is filled with weak species who beg for cooperation because they cannot defend themselves. Are humans also weak?" Katie felt her jaw tighten, but she kept her face neutral. Years of training had taught her when to speak and when to stay quiet. "Humans are not weak," Dan said carefully. "But we prefer peace to war when possible." Zrek made a sound that might have been laughter. "Peace, yes. The weak always prefer peace." He turned to one of his warriors, a slightly smaller Calvex with silver markings on his arms. "Vex, show these humans what strength looks like." Katie's scanner suddenly chirped. She glanced down. The display had changed from green to yellow. Threat level rising. The small screen printed in black letters. Everything happened fast. Vex moved like lightning, crossing the 15 feet between himself and Dan in less than a second. His clawed hand was already reaching for the ambassador's throat. Katie saw it in slow motion, the way she had been trained. Her body reacted before her mind fully processed the threat. She stepped forward and to the left, putting herself between Vex and Dan. Her right hand came up and caught Vex's wrist, redirecting his momentum. Her left hand struck him in the center of his chest, using his own speed against him. Vex stumbled backward, his yellow eyes wide with shock. The entire room went silent. Katie stood in a defensive stance, her scanner now beeping rapidly. Red letters scrolled across the display. Multiple threats detected. Her heart pounded in her chest, but her hands were steady. Zrek stared at her. Every Calvex in the room stared at her. She had just done something that apparently never happened. Impossible, Vex hissed. He looked down at his wrist, then back at Katie. No one has ever blocked my strike. No one. Lieutenant Katie Morgan blocked it just fine, Greg said from behind her. His hand was now on his weapon, though he had not drawn it. Zrek walked slowly toward Katie. She did not move, did not flinch, even though he towered over her by more than a foot. He studied her face, then looked down at the scanner still beeping on her belt. "What is that device?" he asked. "A threat scanner," Katie said. Her voice came out calm and professional. "It monitors potential dangers and provides tactical data. It warned you I was going to order the attack. It warned me that Vex was entering an aggressive stance approximately 2.3 seconds before he moved." Zrek was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in his own language, sharp words that made the other Calvex shift uncomfortably. He looked back at Katie. "You are from Earth?" "Yes, Commander." "Tell me about Earth." Katie glanced at Dan, who nodded slightly. She took a breath. "Earth is a high-gravity world. It has extreme weather, dangerous predators, and limited resources. Humans evolved fighting for survival every single day. We learned to adapt or die. And you learned to fight? We learned to do whatever was necessary to survive. Sometimes that meant fighting. Sometimes that meant running. Sometimes that meant outsmarting threats we could not overpower." Zrek tilted his head. "You were smaller than Vex, weaker. How did you counter him?" "I used his momentum against him. I did not try to be stronger. I was faster and smarter in that specific moment." For the first time, something like respect flickered in Zrek's yellow eyes. He turned to Vex. "She speaks truth. You relied on speed and strength. She relied on skill and timing. You were predictable. She was not." Vex lowered his head, clearly embarrassed. Zrek looked back at Katie, then at Dan. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as I assumed. But one lucky counter does not prove anything." He walked back to his command station and sat in a chair that looked like it was made from bones. "I will make you an offer, Ambassador Fletcher. If your warrior can defeat 3 of my best fighters in formal combat, the Calvex Empire will grant humanity a military alliance. If she fails, all human ships will be marked as prey in Calvex territory. You will have no protection from any species under our influence." Dan's face went pale. "Commander, that is, I volunteer," Katie said. Everyone turned to look at her. Dan opened his mouth to protest, but Katie met his eyes and shook her head slightly. She knew what she was doing. "I accept your challenge, Commander Zrek," she said clearly. Zrek smiled, showing teeth that looked designed for tearing meat. "Excellent. We begin in 1 hour. Prepare yourself, human. You will need it." Dax did not give Katie a moment to breathe. His strikes came in rapid succession, each one precise and calculated. High, low middle, feint left, strike right. Every attack flowed into the next like water. Katie gave ground, her boots sliding on the sand as she blocked and dodged. Her scanner was beeping constantly now, trying to predict Thax's next move, but he was changing patterns every few seconds. Adaptive combat. He was not like Krell at all. A clawed hand grazed Katie's arm, drawing blood. Pain shot through her, but she used it to sharpen her focus. She could not win this fight the same way she had won the first one. Thax was too fast, too smart. She needed something different. Katie stopped retreating. She stepped forward into Thax's next strike, getting inside his reach where his long arms had less leverage. It was risky. At close range, one good hit could end the fight. But it was also where Katie had an advantage. Earth had taught humans to fight at every range. Striking, grappling, ground fighting. Humans had spent thousands of years developing combat sports and martial arts because they enjoyed testing themselves against each other. The Calvex, for all their natural advantages, had never needed to do that. Katie got her hands on Thax's arm and twisted, using a joint lock technique. Thax hissed in surprise and tried to pull away, but Katie held on. She swept his leg and brought him down to the sand. They grappled, rolling across the platform. Thax was stronger, but Katie was more technical. She transitioned from one hold to another, staying just ahead of his counters. Her muscles burned with the effort. Finally, she managed to trap his arm behind his back and apply pressure to his shoulder joint. Thax struggled for several seconds, then went still. He knew that if Katie pushed any harder, the joint would dislocate. "Yield," he said quietly. Katie released him and rolled away, gasping for air. Her entire body hurt now. The cut on her arm was bleeding steadily, and her ribs felt like they were on fire. She had one, but barely. The crowd was louder now. The shocked conversations had turned into heated debates. Katie could hear different species arguing, some saying humans were clearly dangerous, others claiming she had just gotten lucky twice. Shrek stood again, his face unreadable. Winner, Katie Morgan. Second trial complete. Katie staggered to the edge of the platform. Linda was waiting with medical supplies. She quickly cleaned and bandaged the cut on Katie's arm while Dan held out more water. "One more," Dan said. His voice was tight with worry. "Can you do one more?" Katie looked at Dren, the final opponent. He had watched both fights carefully, and now he stood with his arms crossed, studying her. His scales were covered in combat scars, more than either Krell or Thax. This was a veteran warrior, someone who had survived countless battles. Her scanner ran analysis. Dren's profile was alarming. Balanced combat skills. High tactical awareness. Multiple fighting styles detected. No obvious weakness. "I have to," Katie said simply. She took another drink of water and tried to slow her breathing. Her body was starting to shut down from exhaustion, but her mind was still sharp. That would have to be enough. Shrek walked to the center of the platform. He looked at Katie, then at Dren, then back to Katie. Something flickered across his face. Respect, maybe. Or concern. "Before the final trial begins," Shrek said loudly, "I will offer Lieutenant Morgan the chance to withdraw. She has proven herself capable. No one will question her honor if she chooses to end the trials now." The arena went quiet. Every eye was on Katie. She understood what Shrek was really saying. She had surprised them twice. She had shown that humans were not weak. But Dren was different. Dren was the real test, and Shrek was not sure Katie would survive it. Katie looked up at the Calvex commander. "Thank you for the offer, Commander. But I did not come here to prove I was capable. I came here to win. The trial continues." Shrek nodded slowly. "As you wish. Katie Morgan versus Dren. This is the final trial." Dren stepped onto the platform. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Every movement was controlled and deliberate. There was no wasted energy, no unnecessary motion. This was a fighter who had mastered his craft through decades of practice. "You fight well for your size," Dren said. His voice was deeper than the other Calvex, aged and rough. "But you are injured and tired. I will not dishonor you with false hope. This ends quickly." Katie did not respond. She was watching his stance, the way he distributed his weight, the slight angle of his shoulders. Her scanner was feeding her data, but she knew data alone would not win this fight. Drek raised his hand. For a moment, everything stopped. The crowd held its breath. Dan gripped the edge of his seat. Even the other species watching from the gallery leaned forward. "Begin." Dren moved with the speed of Thax and the power of Krell, but with something neither of them had possessed: experience, control. His first strike was a feint, testing Katie's reactions. His second was real but measured, checking her defense. He was not attacking to win immediately. He was gathering information. Katie circled, trying to find an opening. Her scanner beeped warnings. Dren's pattern recognition software was analyzing her movements. He was learning her fighting style in real time. They exchanged several quick combinations. Katie blocked most of Dren's strikes, but a few got through. Each hit added to her growing collection of bruises. She landed a few counters of her own, but Dren barely seemed to notice them. Then Dren changed tactics. He stopped testing and started attacking for real. His strikes came faster, harder, from angles Katie had not seen before. She gave ground, her defense barely holding. A kick caught her in the ribs. Katie gasped as pain exploded through her chest. She stumbled, and Dren pressed his advantage. Another strike hit her shoulder. Then her leg. Katie went down to one knee. The crowd roared. This was it. The human was finished. But Katie was not finished. She was hurting, exhausted, and outmatched, but she was not done. That was the thing about humans. They did not quit just because the situation looked hopeless. Earth had taught them that survival sometimes meant fighting long after you should have fallen. Katie's scanner was still beeping, still providing data, even though she could barely focus on it. But one piece of information caught her eye. Dren had fallen into a rhythm. His attacks were coming in a pattern now, too subtle for most to notice, but the scanner had detected it. 3 high strikes, 2 low, reset. 3 high, 2 low, reset. Pattern recognition was a double-edged sword. It made you efficient, but it also made you predictable. Katie waited for the pattern to start again. 3 high strikes. She blocked them, taking the impacts on her arms. 2 low strikes. She dodged the first. On the second low strike, Katie did something Dren did not expect. Instead of dodging away, she stepped into it, taking the hit on her already damaged ribs. It hurt worse than anything she had ever felt, but it got her inside Dren's guard. She drove her palm up into Dren's jaw with every ounce of strength she had left. His head snapped back. Before he could recover, Katie hooked a leg behind his and threw her body weight against him. Dren fell. Katie fell with him, landing on top. She immediately went for a submission hold, trapping his arm and neck in the same position she had used on Krell. Dren thrashed with incredible strength. Katie held on, even though her ribs were screaming and her arms felt like they would tear apart. She knew she could not hold him for long. 10 seconds, maybe less, but 10 seconds might be enough. "Yield," Katie gasped. "Yield or I break your arm." Dren struggled for 3 more seconds. Then, slowly, he tapped the platform with his free hand. Katie released him immediately and rolled off, collapsing onto the sand. She could not move. Everything hurt too much. She just lay there, staring up at the bright lights, trying to remember how to breathe. The arena was silent for one long moment. Then it erupted. Different species were shouting in different languages. Some sounded angry. Some sounded excited. Some sounded afraid. Katie did not care about any of it. She had won. That was all that mattered. Zrek's face appeared above her, blocking the lights. 3 victories. Lieutenant Katie Morgan has completed all trials. He reached down and offered his clawed hand. Katie took it, and Zrek pulled her to her feet. Her legs almost gave out, but she locked her knees and stayed upright. You have earned humanity's alliance, Zrek said quietly. But more than that, you have earned my respect. I have never seen anyone fight like you. I fought the only way I know how, Katie replied. Like a human. The medical bay on the Calvex flagship was surprisingly advanced. Katie sat on an examination table while a Calvex doctor ran scanning devices over her injuries. The doctor did not speak, just made clicking sounds with his throat as he worked. Dan stood nearby, along with Greg and Linda. They all looked exhausted but relieved. The trials were over. Humanity had won its alliance. 3 broken ribs, the doctor finally said in accented English. Muscle damage in both arms and left shoulder. Multiple contusions. Blood loss from the arm wound. You should be unconscious from pain, yet you are sitting up. Curious. Humans have high pain tolerance, Katie said. She winced as the doctor applied something cold to her ribs. We evolved that way. Yes, so Commander Zrek has been telling everyone. The doctor wrapped Katie's ribs with a bandage that felt warm against her skin. This will help with healing. You will be uncomfortable for several days, but no permanent damage. Thank you. The doctor left, and Katie carefully pulled her shirt back on. Every movement hurt, but it was manageable. She had been hurt worse during training exercises on Earth. The whole galaxy is talking about you, Dan said. He showed Katie a datapad displaying various news feeds. Every species with a representative here sent reports back to their homeworlds. You are famous, Lieutenant. Katie looked at the headlines scrolling across the screen. Human defeats Calvex warriors. Earth species proves combat capability. New military power emerges. She handed the pad back. I just did what needed to be done. You did more than that. You changed how everyone sees humanity. Before today, we were just another diplomatic species trying to find our place in the galaxy. Now they know we can fight. Is that a good thing? Linda asked quietly. Being known for fighting? Before anyone could answer, the door opened. Zrek entered, followed by Krell, Thax, and Dren. All 3 warriors Katie had defeated stood behind their commander. They did not look angry, just thoughtful. Leave us, Zrek said to Don. I wish to speak with Lieutenant Morgan privately. Dan hesitated, then nodded. We will be right outside if you need us, Katie. He led Greg and Linda out of the medical bay. Katie stood up carefully, facing the 4 Calvex. Her scanner was still on her belt, but she did not reach for it. If they wanted to attack her now, there was nothing she could do to stop them anyway. Zrek studied her for a long moment. My scientists scanned you during the trials. They found no genetic enhancements, no cybernetic implants, no chemical stimulants. You are completely natural for your species. Yes, yet you defeated 3 of my best warriors. Warriors who have trained their entire lives for combat. Warriors who have genetic advantages over most species in the galaxy. Zrek moved closer. I need to understand how this is possible. Katie thought about how to explain it. The Calvex are stronger than humans. Faster. You have natural weapons and advantages we do not have. But humans had to evolve differently. We did not have those gifts, so we developed other things. What things? Adaptability. Problem solving. Endurance. We learned to use tools, to work together, to think our way past obstacles we could not fight through directly. Katie gestured to her scanner. This device did not win the fight for me. It just gave me information. I had to decide what to do with that information. Dren stepped forward. You changed tactics for each of us. Against me, you even sacrificed your own body to create an opening. That is not normal combat thinking. On Earth, it is normal. Humans have always fought opponents stronger than themselves. Animals with claws and teeth, diseases, natural disasters, each other. We survived by being clever, not by being the strongest. Krell made a low rumbling sound. When I fought you, I thought I would win through power. You made my power useless. I could not beat your power, so I did not try. I used your weight against you instead. Dax nodded. And you knew fighting techniques I had never seen. Holds and locks that do not rely on strength. Humans have spent thousands of years developing those techniques. We test ourselves against each other constantly. Sports, competitions, military training. We are always trying to find better ways to overcome our own limitations. Zrek was quiet for a while, processing this information. Finally, he spoke. The Calvex have never been defeated in battle because we are the strongest species we have encountered. We rely on our natural gifts. But you have shown me something dangerous. What is that? Natural gifts can be overcome by those who refuse to accept their limitations. Zrek looked at his three warriors. We have become comfortable. We assume our strength is enough because it has always been enough. But what happens when we face an enemy who does not care about our strength? Who finds ways around it? You adapt, Katie said. Like humans do. Yes, and that is why I wanted to speak with you privately. Zrek's yellow eyes focused intently on Katie. The alliance we offered was for military cooperation. Trade routes, offense pacts, mutual support. But I want to propose something additional. What? Send us your combat instructors. Your tactical trainers. Teach the Calvex how to fight the way humans fight. Not to replace our natural abilities, but to add human adaptability to our strength. We will become unbeatable. Katie considered this. I do not have the authority to make that decision. I am just a security officer. But you can recommend it to your superiors. And I believe they will listen to the human who defeated 3 Calvex warriors in one day. Zrek's voice softened slightly. We could learn much from each other. The Calvex have 700 years of combat experience across 40 star systems. Humans have strategies and techniques we have never imagined. Together, we would be formidable. Together, Katie repeated. Not as enemies. Never as enemies. Today you earned our respect. The Calvex do not give respect lightly, and we do not betray those who have it. Krell stepped forward and placed his clawed hand on his chest in what Katie recognized as a Calvex salute. You fought with honor, Lieutenant Morgan. I have fought for 60 years and never been defeated until today. I am not ashamed. I am grateful to have learned from a superior warrior. I am not superior, Katie said quickly. I was just different. You are still stronger and faster than me. In a straight fight, you would win every time. But you did not make it a straight fight. That is the lesson. Krell lowered his hand. Commander Zrek is right. We have much to learn from humans. Thax and Dren both nodded in agreement. The door opened again, and a younger Calvex warrior stuck his head in. Commander, the Galactic observers are requesting a formal statement about the trials and the Alliance. Zrek nodded. Tell them we will make a joint announcement with the human ambassador in 1 hour. He looked at Katie. Rest now. Heal. Tonight, we celebrate the Alliance with a feast. Tomorrow, we begin planning our future cooperation. The Calvex filed out of the medical bay, leaving Katie alone. She sat back down on the examination table, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. The adrenaline that had kept her going through the trials was fading, replaced by bone-deep tiredness. Her scanner beeped softly. She looked down at it. The display showed green again. No threats detected. She smiled slightly and clipped it back to her belt. Don came back in, followed by Greg and Linda. What did Zrek want? Katie explained the proposal for shared combat training. Dan's eyes went wide. That is huge. If we can train with the Calvex, learn their tactics while they learn ours, it would revolutionize human military capability. It would also mean the Calvex respect us as equals, Linda added. Not just as allies, but as partners worth learning from. Can we trust them? Greg asked. A few hours ago, they were ready to mark us as prey. Katie thought about the look in Zrek's eyes when he helped her to her feet after the trials. The way Krell had saluted her. The respect in Dren's voice. Yes, she said. We can trust them. The Calvex value strength and honor. We proved we have both. They will not betray that. Dan smiled. Then, I will recommend to Earth Command that we accept Zrek's proposal. This could be the beginning of something important. Katie nodded, but she was barely listening anymore. Her body was demanding rest, and she was finally ready to give it. She had done her job. She had protected humanity's interests. She had won the Alliance dawn. Now she just wanted to sleep for about 3 days straight. 6 hours later, Katie stood in the Calvex banquet hall wearing a formal uniform that someone had brought from the horizon. Her ribs were still taped, and her arm was bandaged. But the pain medication the Calvex doctor had given her made everything feel distant and manageable. The hall was enormous, filled with tables made from dark wood and lit by floating lights that cast strange shadows on the walls. Calvex warriors filled most of the seats, but Katie also saw representatives from other species. The Grey Novans, the Rocky Granics, the insectoid Zith, all had stayed to attend the celebration. Zrek stood at the head table, raising a cup made from what looked like carved bone. Today, we witnessed something the Calvex Empire has not seen in 700 years. We saw our warriors defeated in honorable combat. The room went quiet. Katie could feel hundreds of eyes on her. But we did not see shame, Zrek continued. We saw the beginning of understanding. The human Lieutenant Katie Morgan showed us that strength comes in many forms. Physical power is important, yes. But adaptability, intelligence, and determination matter just as much. Perhaps more. He turned to face Katie directly. The Calvex Empire formally recognizes humanity as a warrior species. Not because you are the strongest. Not because you are the fastest. But because you refuse to be defeated by those qualities in others. You find ways to win despite your limitations. That is true strength. The Calvex warriors began banging their fists on the tables in what Katie realized was their version of applause. The sound was deafening. Dan leaned over and whispered to Katie, "You should say something." Katie had not prepared a speech. She had not expected to be the center of attention at a galactic celebration. But everyone was waiting, so she stood up carefully, favoring her injured ribs. "Thank you, Commander Zrek," she said. Her voice sounded small in the huge hall, but the Calvex had excellent hearing. "I did not come here today expecting the fight. I came to provide security for Ambassador Fletcher. But when the challenge was issued, I could not refuse. Not because I wanted glory or recognition. I accepted because backing down would have made humanity look weak, and we are not weak." She paused, gathering her thoughts. Humans have a saying, "It is not the size of the fighter in the fight, but the size of the fight in the fighter." What that means is that determination and will can overcome many disadvantages. Today, I was slower than my opponents, weaker, less experienced. But I refused to let those things define the outcome. I fought with everything I had, and I got a little bit lucky. Krell stood up from his table. It was not luck. It was skill. Maybe both, Katie said with a slight smile. But the important thing is that this alliance is not about humans proving we are better than the Calvex. It is about recognizing that we both have strengths the other lacks. Together, we can be stronger than either of us alone. Zrek nodded approvingly. Well spoken. To the alliance between the Calvex Empire and humanity. May it bring prosperity and strength to both our peoples. Everyone drank. Katie took a careful sip from her own cup. The liquid tasted like burning metal and made her eyes water, but she managed not to cough. The celebration went on for hours. Katie spoke with representatives from different species, all wanting to know about Earth and human capabilities. Some were clearly worried. Others were interested in forming their own alliances with humanity. Word of the trials had spread fast, and everyone wanted to reassess their position in the galaxy now that humans had proven themselves. A Novan diplomat, thin and gray with large black eyes, approached Katie. Your victory today has caused concern among my people. If humans can defeat the Calvex, what does that mean for species like us, who have no combat capability? It means nothing changes, Katie said. Humans do not seek conflict. We prefer peace and cooperation. The only reason I fought today was because the alternative was worse. But you are clearly dangerous. Every species is dangerous when threatened. Humans are just more open about our capabilities than some others. Katie met the Novan's dark eyes. We want the same things you want. Safety, prosperity, a place in the galaxy. We just proved today that we can defend ourselves and our allies if necessary. The Novan considered this. Perhaps that is not such a bad thing. The galaxy has many threats. Having strong allies could be beneficial. Later, as the celebration began to wind down, Dren approached Katie. The scarred warrior moved slowly, his expression thoughtful. I have been thinking about our fight, he said without preamble. You sacrificed your own body to create an opening. You took damage deliberately to gain advantage. Yes. Why? Most warriors try to avoid injury at all costs. Katie thought about how to explain it. Because winning was more important than avoiding pain. The injury was temporary, but losing the fight would have had permanent consequences. I made a choice based on priorities. That is a very human way of thinking, I believe. Dren tilted his head. Commander Zrek has asked me to lead the Calvex warriors who will train with human instructors. I wanted to ask your opinion. What should we focus on learning first? Adaptability, Katie said immediately. Your warriors are incredibly skilled, but they rely on their natural advantages. Teach them to fight as if they do not have those advantages. Make them think about every opponent as a puzzle to solve, not just an enemy to overpower. And what can we teach humans in return? Discipline, focus, the kind of precision that comes from centuries of combat tradition. Humans are adaptable because we have to be. Calvex are efficient because you have perfected your methods. Both are valuable. Dren nodded slowly. I look forward to this exchange. You have given me much to think about, Lieutenant Morgan. As midnight approached, Dan finally convinced Katie to return to the horizon and get proper rest. Greg and Linda escorted her back through the Calvex ship, both of them still processing everything that had happened. You know you are going to be famous when we get back to Earth, Linda said. The human who defeated the Calvex. They will probably make movies about today. Katie groaned. I hope not. I just want to go back to regular security duty. That is not going to happen, Greg said with a grin. You are a legend now. Better get used to it. Back on the horizon, Katie went straight to her quarters. She carefully removed her uniform, wincing at every movement, and collapsed onto her bunk. Her scanner sat on the small desk nearby. Its display dark and quiet. Katie picked it up and ran a diagnostic. The device had performed perfectly during the trials, giving her the information she needed exactly when she needed it. But it had not won the fights. It had just been a tool. The real victory had come from something the scanner could not measure. human determination, the refusal to quit, the ability to adapt and overcome. Those were not things that could be programmed in the software or predicted by algorithms. Her personal communicator beeped. Katie checked it and saw a message from Earth Command. They had received Dan's report about the Alliance and the combat trials. They wanted a full debrief as soon as possible. They also congratulated her on representing humanity so well. Katie set the communicator aside and closed her eyes. Tomorrow would bring more questions, more meetings, more attention. But tonight, she just needed to rest. 3 weeks later, Katie stood in a training facility on Earth, watching as the first group of Calvex warriors arrived to begin the exchange program. Krell led them, his dark scales looking strange under Earth's yellow sun. "Your gravity is heavier than ours," Krell said, looking uncomfortable. "And your atmosphere is thicker. You will adapt," Katie said. That is what this program is about. Over the next months, Katie helped train Calvex warriors in human combat techniques while learning from them in return. It was difficult work. The Calvex had centuries of ingrained habits to overcome, and human instructors had to learn how to work with physiology very different from their own. But slowly, progress happened. Calvex warriors learned to think tactically instead of just relying on speed and strength. Human soldiers learned Calvex precision and discipline. Both sides gained respect for what the other brought to the partnership. News of the Alliance spread across the galaxy. Other species watched carefully to see how the relationship between humans and Calvex developed. Some sought their own alliances with one or both parties. Others kept their distance, wary of the new military power that had emerged. Katie received offers from a dozen different organizations, military positions, private security, even entertainment companies wanting to use her name and likeness. She turned them all down and stayed with her original assignment on the horizon. A year after the trials, Katie stood once again in a Calvex arena. But this time, she was not fighting. She was watching human and Calvex warriors train together, testing new techniques that combined the best of both species' approaches to combat. Zrek stood beside her, observing the training. "Your people have changed us," he said quietly. "Made us think differently about strength and victory." "And your people have changed humans," Katie replied. "Taught us discipline and precision we lacked before." "A good partnership, then." "Yes, a good partnership." Katie's scanner beeped softly at her belt. She glanced down. The display showed green. No threats detected. She smiled. The galaxy had changed in the past year. Humanity had found its place among the stars, not through conquest or submission, but through proving what they had always been.